Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and Happy New Year. We've looked at a few different types of games over the episodes, but this time we're going to take things a little bit slower. Back to the point and click adventure. Not every game has to be about headshots and mowing endless hordes of zombies down. Sometimes we want to take things a little bit slower. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to take a quick look at some of the point and click adventures that I'm familiar with and the ones I grew up with. And of course my most favourite point and click adventure game of all time. In some respects I see the point and click adventure as kind of an evolution of the Dizzy style of games. Taking objects in one location and using them in another to solve a puzzle. Maybe it's something that will catch on in other games. When it comes to the most well-known point and click games, maybe Monkey Island and Monkey Island 2 are probably top of the list. And this was probably one of the first ones that I saw back in the day on the Commodore Amiga. I never really played much of it myself, but I do remember watching my brother play through it and trying to figure out some of the puzzles together. Back in the day though, in the early days of point and click adventures, it was just on-screen text, no actual spoken dialogue, but that would change in the future. What I remember about Monkey Island, and particularly Monkey Island 2, was the amount of discs it came on. Didn't Monkey Island 2 come on something like 12 discs? A real disc swapper for its time. But anyway, it's a great adventure and I do keep meaning to pick up the enhanced editions and play them through. One of the early point and click games that I remember playing myself was Curse of Enchantia, or Curse of Enchanter as I always used to call it. Close enough. I never did get very far in this one, but I do remember enjoying it. Coming back to it now though, I have to admit I even had to look up a solution to how to get out of the first room. I did remember that you had to call the guard to get him to trip over and leave the key behind. But the actual interface this game uses takes some getting used to, I'd say. When you free yourself from the manacles you're still stuck, so what do you do? Well, there's not really any handy hints in this game, you've just got to look around, and I don't know how I solved this or even worked this puzzle out as a kid. There's this bit of wall here that looks like every other bit of wall as far as I can see, maybe slightly different. Get near it, click one of the action buttons and you can see that you can push and pull it. And in the debris of the wall there's a paperclip, and you can use this on the lock to escape the room. Why is a paperclip in a wall? No one knows. I probably last played this game over 20 years ago, but I do remember that you had to pick up the goldfish bowl. This lets you breathe underwater. Another puzzle solved. I do like the graphic style with this game, they've done a really good job. I'll have to come back and complete it someday. One thing that seems common on most point and click games is that you can't really die. Here on Beneath a Steel Sky though you do seem to be able to, but this is right at the start. I'm not sure if you can die at any other point in the game. After a bit of looking around with the mouse you can find this rung. Break it off and you've kinda got a crowbar to break open the door.
Who's up there? You won't escape that way! He must have jumped. Fell all the way to ground level.
But how do you hide from the guard that's in pursuit? Just hold on to the back of the door. After this he's distracted and you can finally go downstairs.
Nobody told me. I'm too busy to show
We originally played this game on the Amiga CD, and it was probably this game that was the first point and click game I remember playing that had full spoken dialogue. And there's one character from this game that I will never forget. His name is Lamb and his voice actor is absolutely phenomenal. Let's have a listen.
Do you know a guy called Overman?
Doberman? No, I don't.
What do you do for entertainment around here?
If I'm looking for entertainment, I go home and watch a video.
How do I get down to ground level?
You can't! Security have disabled the elevator.
Is your coat made of real fur?
That's right, real beaver fur. Made from the last 10 beavers in the world. Do you like it?
I remember when one of my friends first bought round the Amiga CD32, and Darkseid was one of the games that he had. I thought the graphics at the time looked absolutely amazing, and just hearing this little console, being able to talk to you, actual voices in characters in games, that was the power of CD technology. Coming from floppy disks, what a leap. The game itself though, you might want to leave this one. I know it's quite well thought of, but it's a bit too clunky to play this one. Another good point and click game is the Syberia series. I did play the first one on the PC and I've bought the Trilogy on the Switch, but hey, I'll get round to playing them at some point. How many of us have got games we haven't even started yet? I enjoyed making a dent into the first game, but I'll get round to 2 and 3 eventually. One point and click game that I've got to give a shout out to is the first in the Black Mirror trilogy. I picked this game up on sale in Game years and years ago. I think it only cost me £1 or £2. And the voice acting in this game is a little bit rough. It's true. It really is a little bit rough, but the locations, the graphics, and most of all the audio, the environmental sounds this game has, absolutely brilliant. Really puts you into the game. They've put a lot of effort into this one. There's a couple of sequels to this one that don't really grab me quite the same way, but the first game, seek it out and play it. Really good. There was a modern day sequel of this game. It got released on PC and a few other systems as well. I picked it up on the Xbox and was really looking forward to this one. Unfortunately, whilst the graphics do look quite good, it didn't really deliver. The load-in times were absolutely horrific on this one. It really was as slow as going back to the Commodore Amiga Monkey Island days. Each screen took absolutely ages to load and it just killed the game for me. There's still plenty of point and click games out there, some better than others, it's got to be said. But now it's time to look at my most favourite point and click game of all time. Simon the Sorcerer was released way back in 1993 on the Amiga and the PC, and it was the Amiga version that I first played. And I think when it was released it came out on 9 floppy disks, absolutely crazy for the time. The graphics really stick with me in this game, they're absolutely fantastic. Yeah, it's only just backgrounds, but the design and the care that's gone into making these backgrounds is absolutely brilliant. I did read that Adventure Soft had hired some illustrators to work on this game. That's illustrators, not graphics designers. So they submitted their work, but the guys had to show them how to use the graphics packages to actually make the backgrounds. They must have picked it up pretty quick though, because what a great effort they've made. Now I've probably been playing this game for 25 to 30 years myself, but anyone really familiar with this? Do you recall if there's a way to show the exits and the items you can interact with? Reading online and checking the PC version lately, I noticed you can press F10 to show the objects you can interact with, but I don't ever recall that being a feature on the Amiga version, which is really important, otherwise you can just spend ages hunting around for objects. And as it was the Amiga version that I was most familiar with and played with back in the day, that's kind of what we're going to be discussing. And we're also going to be looking at some of the frustrations that I had back in the day, but also why I really love this game. I had an Amiga 600 at the time, but I actually swapped my Amiga 600 with the guy that showed me his Amiga CD32. A good trade I thought, and I think it came with Simon the Sorcerer, either that or I bought it very shortly afterwards, but a really good trade that one, swapping your Amiga 600 for a CD32. True, not all the games on it were great, but it did mean you get to play Simon the Sorcerer with a full audio soundtrack, and that was provided by Chris Barry. Yep, him from Red Dwarf. And maybe Chris Barry is the reason why I didn't gel with any of the other Simon the Sorcerer games. To me, Chris Barry is Simon the Sorcerer, having anyone else doing the voice seems wrong. I have played Simon too, but the voice actor, it just doesn't work for me. So the first game, that's the one to stick with.
Dear Simon, I am pleased to announce that you have been chosen from literally hundreds of hopeful candidates to perform a death-defying but extremely worthwhile quest, for which you will be rewarded quite a lot. All you have to do is rescue me from the hands of the evil sorcerer Sordid. Feel free to use my extremely valuable spellbook and dog to assist you. Look forward to seeing you soon. Wish you were here. Love and kisses, Calypso, Grand High Wizard of the village of Fleur-de-Lis.
So as we look around the village, picking up objects that are clearly too large for a wizard's hat, how did Simon get here? Well, Simon's dog Chippy finds the spellbook in the attic, which opens a portal to another dimension. We're playing the updated version of the game now that's got some nice quality of life enhancements. You can make some minor changes to the graphics filters and also choose which music you hear. There's a new enhanced music track, but you can also play some of the classic ones as well. By far the most useful feature, however, is that little enhancement that shows you the objects you can pick up as well as the exits. You can see as we go into this building here that you can sort of snap to objects that you can pick up in the room, and this is what made that Amiga version so hard back in the day. You really had to move the mouse around and find every last little pixel in the room, just trying to find that hidden item. Things like this cold remedy you need to pick up in this room, or the specimen jar, they're only a few pixels across, so trying to find these items back in the day, you might get really far into the game and just get completely stuck. Come back to an earlier screen, look around, and I do mean look around quite a lot, and you might find that one item that you need to progress. Thankfully, we don't need to worry about these old problems in this modern release. As you enter the local tavern, we can pick up a couple of objects. This is the pack of matches on top of the fruit machine, which is about 10 pixels across, and also use the scissors on the dwarf to get the beard. We're going to need this later on. Once we've cut off the dwarf's beard, we can ask the girls in the bar that all-important question.
What are your measurements?
I'm a 38, 22, 34.
And I'm a 36, 24, 34.
In a side room we find 4 wizards who are going to start our quest for us. But initially they say they aren't wizards, just a bunch of simple farmers. And I've always liked the way that Simon figures them out in this game, really good.
You sure you're not wizards?
Quite sure, lad. We be country folk, born in wholemeal bread, who are...
Are you saying we be fakes like?
Yep.
What makes you think we're wizards anyway, like?
When I move my mouse pointer over you, it says wizards.
Oh, fair enough, I suppose. Disguise is off, lads. What did you want to speak to us about anyway?
To become a wizard we have to complete a quest and return to the wizards with a staff. And finally we can leave the town. It's when you head out of the village that you really appreciate the quality of the artwork in this game. Seeing this back in 1993 on maybe a small 15-inch CRT TV, and the music, it just looked absolutely incredible. The pixel art, the quality, the time the developers and the designers and the artists have put into this game is just absolutely incredible. Even when I see this game all these years later, I really love the graphics. So well done.
Who's that trip-trapping over my bridge?
Here we are.
One of the earlier easy puzzles we come across is the troll on the troll bridge. He won't let us pass all the billy goats, so we got to find a way past him. Thankfully, elsewhere in the forest we find this guy who's got a thorn stuck in his foot. We help remove it and he helps us out with the troll problem.
Oh,
You've been picking on my friend.
no, sir.
He seems to think otherwise.
Ow!
What should I do with him?
Chuck him in the stream.
Okie dokie. Everything okay now?
Yeah, thanks a lot.
See ya.
But let's talk about some of the stuff that drove us nuts as kids. And on the Amiga version it was the pixel hunting, finding that one little pixel or item on the screen that you could interact with. And there's perhaps no better example of that than on this screen. This is outside the Goblin Fortress, and if you look under this rock, you've got to get really close to it, click this rock, and you'll find a shopping list which you need for later in the game. And in that Amiga version, as far as I'm aware, there was none of that find all objects on screen button, nothing like that, so you really did have to hunt around and find these items. And yet it wasn't just finding hidden objects in this game, it was finding new locations. They're not always obvious. I remember playing this game on my Amiga CD32, walking around for hours just trying to work out where I had to go. I turned up at this location in the swamp and I didn't know where else to go. You're stuck right on the end of a swamp, where else can you go? Well, I clicked to the right and it's not a swamp, it's not a river, it's not water. You can just walk over it. So the first time I got over here, I had like a whole new area to explore, so it was cool in that way but frustrating in another. And of course there's this screen. You've got to find your way across and you've got to find a climbing pin to put in the missing hole to be able to go across. However, there's also a lower route. There appears to be no obvious way you could get down there, but one day I just randomly clicked and Simon jumped over, and you think, what are the rules to this game? All of a sudden Simon can jump? I can look back on stuff like this now and just laugh, but when this was back in 1993 I just could not believe it. And of course there's the gorge area. You can approach this from the left or the right, but you can't really see where to go. The only thing you can really do is look down into the gorge. So how do you like this for hidden? Right at the bottom left hand corner of the screen are some vines, and you can climb down these into a new area. I think things like this people wouldn't be quite so forgiving of today, but this is how it was back in the day, hidden and obscure. Maybe I should have paid the £5 for that hint book in the box, but remember there was no real internet back then. Hope for a solution released in a magazine, that's pretty much your only bet. So when it comes to actually solving the puzzles, it's not actually too bad. When you've got various items, you kind of know where you need to use them. That beard we cut off the dwarf in the pub earlier on, we can use that to pretend we're a dwarf and get into the dwarf mine. But we still need a password. Thankfully we can find this password written on the underside of a rock just outside. But you can just go through an endless list of phrases until you eventually get it anyway, so it does kind of help you out if you don't find this rock. Well, maybe I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. What about the puzzle where you have to get some magic beans, water them, plant them in some compost, grow a watermelon and throw it at this guy's sousaphone to stop him playing? Yeah, maybe not the easiest thing to figure out straight away. There are a few other games in the Simon series, I think there's about 5 of them, but I really consider the first 2 games to be Simon the Sorcerer. There is what I consider a bit of a disastrous attempt to create a 3D Simon the Sorcerer game in the later series, but I think it was a bit too ambitious for the time, the graphics weren't really there yet. As I'm putting this video together, a new game has been announced, Simon the Sorcerer Origins, which is a prequel to this game. Now all we've got to go on so far is a brief video showcasing the game, and I've got to be honest with you, the graphical style doesn't grab me in the slightest. But it is early release footage, so who knows where it will be.
It is so nice to have Persian come visit me. I is so pleased.
Well, actually, I think I've got the wrong house.
Wow! I thought you were my first birthday friend. I thought you'd come to play with me for my birthday. No one ever comes to see me anymore.
I'm not surprised. I'd rather visit a warm cesspit.
Don't worry, you can apologise, come back into the house and say you're sorry by eating the swampling stew. And you've got to do this to fill the specimen jar with the swamp stew, as well as find a secret passage under the house. But you'll find you can't get any further until you buy the hammer and nail from the shop in town. This allows you to fix the plank in place and carry on. A good thing about the structure of this game is you will have several puzzles going on at once, so even if you can't find the solution to another, maybe you'll find a puzzle, you get a reward for it, and that will help you out down the line. The game's all about experimenting, trying different commands on different objects to see where you go. In the woodcutter's house you can put out the fire with a fire extinguisher. After that you can move the hook above the fireplace and this takes you to another hidden room. But you might try use hook, you might try pick up hook. None of these things seem to work until you eventually get to move. One of the roadblocks I had on this game back in the day was when you finally find the Staff of Power. That staff that the wizards ask you to collect at the beginning of the game. It's held by this mummy in the bottom of this building, and I always thought, well, you've got to find an object to get it off him. What can you use to defeat a mummy? Nothing at all apparently. All you got to do is wait until he comes out and click pick up and click the loose bandage on his back. If you don't do that really quickly, Simon will just run out the room. So yeah, some puzzles are as simple as that. They don't need other objects to help you out. One puzzle that I think was a bit much was the one when you go into the cottage. Inside you find the beekeeper's outfit and the smoke box. This allows you to calm the bees down and get some wax from the hive. But how do you use it?
I'd like a wet wizard, please.
Hang on a moment. I'm sure I've got some sparrow juice down here somewhere.
I've blocked the nozzle on the barrel with the wax.
Yeah, you can only use the wax on the
Wait
barrel
here, kid, I've
after
got
you've
something
distracted
for
the
you.
barman by talking to him. I was always looking at this game as use object on thing to complete a problem, but it's not always that way, and this particular puzzle, just there was no way back in the day did anyone figure this one out. And that's
Hey,
without
kid,
using a solution,
Take
by the
one
way.
of these leaflets home to your dad.
One puzzle I'm really surprised I got back in the day was this one. You've got to combine a couple of items, I think it's a rope and a grappling hook. That lets you use it on this little bit that's really hard to see above the dragon's cave, fish down into it with a fishing rod and a magnet, and pick up some coins. I'm only showing you a small part of the game here, but eventually you have to get everything together and defeat the evil Sorcerer Sordid. After several other side quests, we bring the staff back to the wizards, and after that we have to go to Sordid's tower to defeat Sordid himself. Thankfully we've picked up several objects along the way, not least that climbing pin that we need to get across the chasm, picked up from the woodcutter's house. But I think we're going to leave it there for this time. I still really love this game. Coming back to it again, there's loads and loads of stuff that I remember. Pretty much everything. I was able to play through the whole game. I think I only needed one or two little nudges along the way, but all this knowledge, all retained throughout the years. Brilliant. And I never thought I'd say this, but the best way, in my opinion, to play this game is on a mobile device. You'll never hear me saying that about anything else. It's a touchscreen device. It couldn't be any more suited to this type of game. And you get the enhanced soundtrack as well as the original versions as well, so definitely pick this up on the mobile, that's the way to play it, and you can still watch Netflix or whatever if you haven't got the patience for this type of game. But this game is all about the nostalgia for me, the graphics and the sounds, the endless attempts to try and solve puzzles, and it's a game I would recommend to anyone, hardcore gamers or people that are just starting out. It's got something for everyone. But let me know the point and click games that you remember back in the day, put them in the comments so we can all have a look and check them out. But that's going to do us for this time, so take it easy and I'll see you on the next vid.